Tonight, I bring you the story of danger that never announced itself. Listen carefully, because the loudest threat is often the one you never hear coming. Can you imagine someone so calm, they terrify you without ever raising their voice? He worked with a man named Daniel, soft-spoken, polite, always composed. The kind of person who seemed incapable of conflict, who apologized even when he wasn't wrong, who never interrupted, never argued, never caused a scene. Everyone loved Daniel. Such a calming presence, so easy to work with, never any drama with him. But he felt something else, something he couldn't name, a discomfort that lived in his gut whenever Daniel was near. It wasn't anything Daniel did. It was what he didn't do. Daniel never reacted. Someone would insult him. Nothing. Someone would take credit for his work. Silence. Someone would push him. He'd simply step aside. And everyone saw this as weakness, as kindness, as peace. But he saw something different. He saw control. Perfect, unsettling control. Most people reveal themselves in conflict. They get angry, defensive, emotional. Their masks slip when pressure is applied. But Daniel's mask never moved, not even a crack. And that's when he realized the calmest people aren't always the safest. Sometimes they're just the best at hiding what is underneath. It started with small things he noticed. How Daniel would remember everything, every slight, every comment, every mistake. Months later, he'd reference something you said once, casually, and you'd realize he'd been keeping score the entire time. How Daniel never forgot who wronged him. He wouldn't react in the moment, wouldn't argue, wouldn't defend himself. He'd just file it away. And then weeks or months later, that person would find themselves in trouble. A project sabotaged, a reputation quietly destroyed, an opportunity mysteriously gone. And Daniel would express such genuine concern. "I'm so sorry that happened to you," with that same soft voice, that same calm demeanor. But he started noticing a pattern. Everyone who crossed Daniel eventually fell. Not immediately, not obviously, but inevitably. There was a co-worker, Marcus, who once humiliated Daniel in a meeting, made him look incompetent in front of the entire team. Daniel smiled, apologized, sat down quietly. 3 months later, Marcus was fired, not for that meeting, for something else entirely. Something about mishandled documents. Documents that Daniel had been organizing. When he heard the news, he walked past Daniel's desk. Daniel looked up, made eye contact, and said softly, "Shame about Marcus. He was always so careless." And in that moment, he saw it, just for a second. A flicker behind those calm eyes. Not anger, not satisfaction, something colder. Something that had been waiting patiently for months. He realized then, Daniel wasn't calm because he was at peace. Daniel was calm because he knew he'd win, eventually. Calm people can afford patience because they're playing a longer game than you realize. He started watching more carefully after that, paying attention to the details Daniel never forgot. The favors Daniel quietly collected. The information Daniel casually absorbed. Daniel never asked invasive questions. But somehow, he always knew things. Personal things. Vulnerable things. And he never used them maliciously. Not directly. But when someone became a problem, those things had a way of becoming relevant. Becoming public. Becoming weapons. There was a woman, Sarah, who tried to get Daniel removed from a project. She was loud about it, aggressive, made a big show. Daniel said nothing in his defense, just listened, nodded, accepted the decision gracefully. 2 weeks later, Sarah's husband called the office, looking for her, because she'd told him she was working late. But the office had closed hours ago. Daniel had simply mentioned in passing to the receptionist, "If anyone calls for Sarah, let them know she usually leaves by 5. Helpful, innocent, devastating. Sarah's marriage fell apart. Her focus at work crumbled. She left the company 6 months later. And Daniel sent her a goodbye card, wishing you all the best in your next chapter," signed with perfect, measured handwriting. He realized something terrifying. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who explode, they're the ones who never do. Because explosive people are predictable. You see them coming, you know when they're angry, you can defend yourself. But the calm ones, they strike when you've forgotten you ever crossed them, when you think you're safe, when your guard is completely down. And here is what the crow knows about still waters. They don't rage because they don't need to. They erode, slowly, patiently. They wear you down grain by grain, until one day the ground beneath you simply collapses. The person who never raises their voice, they don't need to shout, because they've already decided your fate, and they're calm, because they know you haven't realized it yet. He never crossed Daniel after that, not out of respect, out of survival instinct, because he understood something most people miss. There are 2 kinds of calm, the calm of peace and the calm of control. One comes from having nothing to prove. The other comes from knowing you've already won. Daniel was the second kind, and the scariest part, most people never figure that out. They mistake his silence for weakness, his patience for passivity, his composure for kindness, until it's too late, until they're gone. And Daniel is still there, calm as ever, ready for the next person who doesn't understand the difference. The most dangerous person in the room is often the quietest one, not because they're afraid to fight, but because they've learned something more effective. Patience is a weapon, silence is a strategy, and calm is the mask that predators wear best. If you've ever felt chills around someone who never raised their voice, if you've ever sensed something cold beneath a warm smile, trust that instinct, because still waters don't just run deep. Sometimes they drown you. The crow watches the quiet ones most carefully, because they're the ones who strike when no one's watching. If you've learned to read the storms beneath the calm, share what you've seen below. And if you want to learn the other masks people wear, the crow will return, until silence speaks louder than words.